Hey y'all, I'm Hope, and today I'm going to be wrapping up all of the books that I read in October. Or rather, I will be wrapping up all of the books I read as I read them, because today is actually the 4th of October. But I found in August that I really enjoyed doing kind of a vlog style wrap up, where I was just kind of like wrapping up the books that I read as I read them. And I thought that this worked really well. One, because I didn't have to do like a sit down video at the end of the month, and also because I think that my thoughts on the books, when I can give them a little bit fresher when I've just read the book and kind of remember what happened and remember what I was thinking when I read it, I think I'm getting better thoughts on camera that way, rather than trying to wait and do it all at the end of the month. So overall, I just think this works better for me, so we're going to stick with this for now and see how it goes. But with that being said, I have actually already finished 3 books in October, 2 books technically and 1 short story. But, oh, and as I go through these, I'm doing 3 readathons, so I will tell you as I go along which readathons I use them for and for what prompts. I also have some spiced apple chai tea, which is delicious. So the first book I read was Ring Shot by Peta Jelly Clark, and I read this one for Spoopathon for the prompt under 200 pages, and this also gave me the bonus prompts LGBTQ rep, spooky book, and recommended to you, because this is actually my partner's copy of this book. He lent it to me and recommended the book to me, or rather what he in his own words called a violent request rather than a demand, but he wanted me to read this before the year ended. So I did, and I absolutely love this book. He was totally right. I really enjoyed this one. This is a kind of Lovecraftian-esque horror book, but it follows a woman named Maurice and her friends Chef and Sadie, and together they are monster hunters, and specifically they hunt these demons called Ku Kluxes, which are exactly what they sound like. They're members of the Ku Klux Klan who have been turned into demons, and they hunt them down and kill them. And it follows them as they are doing this and kind of unravel a larger plot that is taking place. And so I really loved this book. First of all, I love the main trio of Maurice, Sadie, and Chef. I think that their dynamic together is really fun, and they have a lot of really great dialogue with each other, but also, like, it's so clear that they have each other's backs no matter what, and that they really love each other. It's just a really sweet little friendship group. So I love that. And also, obviously, they're all pretty badass because they're monster hunters. So that's a lot of fun. Also, this is a really interesting commentary on racism in America, and I thought that the way that Clark uses like the idea of these evil people being like actual monsters to explore that and like the history of racism in America was really clever, and I feel like you really packed a massive punch into such a small book. I cried twice reading this one, so I loved this one, and I'm really glad I picked it up. And I have to give my partner his copy back, and then I'm probably gonna have to go buy myself a copy, because I think I'm definitely gonna want to reread this in future. And then the second book I read, when I finished under 200 pages, I should have been at the prompt Something You Fear, but I really wasn't feeling that, and I'm on Team Spectral Shenanigans, which has the ability to move sideways. So I jumped through a few walls there and went to the prompt translated book, and I read Frankenstein and Other Stories by Junji Ito, which half of this book is his adaptation of Frankenstein, and then the other half of this book is a series of short stories following a high schooler named Oshikiri as strange things are happening to him while his parents are overseas for work. And this one I really enjoyed. I did not like this as much as Ring Shout. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. I think that if you haven't already read Frankenstein, this maybe isn't the greatest place to encounter the story for the first time, because this really closely follows the book for like half of the story, and then it veers off in its own direction in about the halfway point and does something totally different. But the things that it does different, I think, kind of strip away some of the themes that the original story had, and the way that the original story really focused in on like Frankenstein's ambition and self-centeredness. So I think you're missing that in this version. I don't think this is a bad version. I just don't think it's quite as strong as the original for those themes. I also think it suffered a little bit because there are sections in the original story where you're spending a lot of time with specific characters, and here those sections are just a few pages because it's all visual. So it's told in a much faster pace, and so there's some emotional impact that I think is lost because of that. You're not getting the same emotional impact for some of the character deaths when they happen here because you haven't spent that same kind of time with those characters. That being said, Junji Ito's artwork is fantastic as always throughout the entire Frankenstein adaptation, and so I really enjoyed looking at his rendering of Frankenstein and the monster and all the different characters, so I thought that that was really fun. For the second half of this book, I actually liked it much better. I really liked all of the stories around Oshikiri because they kind of start to weave together in a really interesting way after you get through a couple of them. There were a couple that I thought weren't as strong, but on the whole I really liked the Oshikiri stories. I don't want to say too much about them just because they are very short, and I do think that it's best to go into them blind if you're going to read them because there is some really interesting interplay between the different stories. But on the whole, I thought that the Oshikiri stories were much creepier than the Frankenstein story, and there was one story in here that, like, if I had to give that story alone a rating, I would give that story 5 stars. So absolutely loved that. And now I've read all of the Junji Ito that is currently on my shelves because I had this one and Gyo, so I need to bulk up my Junji Ito collection because I do want to read more from him. Even though I don't think I've rated either of the ones I've read very highly, I think I've also not read any of his, like, particularly popular ones. Like, I haven't read Uzumaki yet, and I know that I've heard good things about his short story collections. So while I didn't absolutely love this, I did really like it, and I am looking forward to reading more from him. And then the last thing that I read this month so far is the short story The Future of Work Compulsory by Martha Wells, which is like a prequel short story, like 2 pages long, for the Murderbot Diaries. And I really enjoyed this one as well. I think I gave it 4 stars. I did notice in the reviews after I read it that quite a few people had mentioned that they thought that it was best read once you'd read some of the, like, main Murderbot books, just because it is drawing a lot on, like, your understanding of Murderbot from those other stories. And I think I tend to agree with him. I haven't read those other books yet. I have All Systems Red on my shelf, but haven't gotten to it yet. And while I really liked the short story, I thought it was very fun. I do think I would have liked it even better if I had had, like, more context around who Murderbot is. But I did know enough about Murderbot going in, I think, to, like, understand the story and to enjoy it anyway. So I gave that one 4 stars, and I think that, I think it actually has made me more excited to pick up the rest of the Murderbot stories, just because it gave me, like, a very short, brief taste of Martha Wells' writing and kind of the tone to expect from the Murderbot stories. So I am looking forward to picking those up. So I finished 3 books, and I've completely forgotten to update for 2 of them. Finished one of them today, but a couple weeks ago, has it been that long? A week ago Friday. Today is currently, no, it has almost been 2 weeks. Okay, so like 2 weeks ago I finished reading excuse me, I finished reading the first 2 short stories that are a part of Peter Jelly Clark's Dead Djinn universe. So I read Dead Djinn in Cairo and The Angel of Khan el-Khalili. And so, if I remember the ratings correctly, I believe I gave a Dead Djinn in Cairo 4 stars, and I gave The Angel of Khan el-Khalili 5 stars. And this was mostly because the first one, A Dead Djinn in Cairo, is a murder mystery, and I loved the characters in that. It follows Fatma, who is a detective in a ministry that has a very long name that I've now forgotten, but she's investigating the apparent murder of a djinn, and it kind of spirals into this much bigger thing. And I really like Fatma as a protagonist. She's really cool, and there were lots of really fun side characters that had very different views of the world to her. But my issue is with the plot, only because it is very short. It's like 32 pages, I think, or 33. It's very short. And there were parts of the mystery aspect that felt like they just came together a little bit too quickly. So there was some, like, logic gaps there for me. But on the whole, I thought the mystery was really clever, and I did really like the solution to it. And again, I really liked Fatma as a protagonist. and I am looking forward to reading more with her in it. I believe she's the protagonist of the novel, A Master of Jinn. I believe that's correct, but I would love to see more from her. And then I gave The Angel of Khan al-Khalili 5 stars, and it was very different because it's set in the same world. It's actually set in a market that shows up in a dead Jinn in Cairo, but it follows a young woman who is going to find the Angel of Khan al-Khalili. There's these angel creatures. It's unclear whether they're actually angels, but they call themselves angels. And she goes to find the one at this market, and I can't remember the angel's name, but she's hoping that the angel will grant her a miracle, which is to save her sister, who has been badly burned in a fire. And so it's about this young woman and like what she's willing to do and what she's willing to expose about herself to get that miracle granted. So I think it was really interesting, and I really liked the development of the character because it's about the same length of A Dead Jinn in Cairo. My cat is kicking the door. He's angry, he's shut out. Sorry if you can hear that in the background, the loud noises. It's the cat trying to get in. But this being about the same length, I felt this worked a little bit better because since it was really about kind of this character's character development and the unfolding of her backstory, I felt like that worked better in this very short writing. So I really enjoyed that one, and I am very much looking forward to reading the next one, which I believe is a novella. It's The Haunting of Tramcar 015, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited, which I just subscribed to recently so I could spend a little bit less on books overall. And I'm really excited to get to that one, so I'm hoping to read that one soon, but I don't know if I'm going to read it this month. Then today I finished an audiobook, which was So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson. This is a nonfiction book, and it chronicles Jon Ronson's kind of exploration into the phenomenon of public shaming on the internet, particularly like the examples of, I think Justine Sacco is maybe the most well-known, at least the one that I already knew about, the woman who made a joke about AIDS and then said like that she wouldn't get it because she's white. So it's about like her public shaming, but it's about all of these different people who've experienced public shaming, and then how that gets used as a tool of like civilian justice. It's about crowd madness. It's about the American justice system. It incorporates a lot of very disparate elements that I wouldn't normally think of as going together, but I think that he weaves it all together in a really interesting and compelling way. And as I've found before with his audiobooks, the audiobook is really good because he reads it himself, and he does a really good job of narrating it because it feels like he's just telling you this story of some weird stuff that he learned about. So I really enjoyed this one. I listened to it over the last 2 days while I've been at work, just doing web updates and things, but highly recommend that one. So I finished Nothing But Blackened Teeth last night by Cassandra Khaw, and I think I enjoyed it. I'm really like struggling to put into words how I feel about this book. I actually sat with it overnight and through today, just trying to kind of figure it out. I gave it 4 stars. I did really enjoy the process of reading it, but it is a very weird book, and it to me, I think the best way I can describe this is it feels like a book that I'm gonna need to come back to at least a couple of times and reread to really get everything out of it, because it was doing so many things and they were all really interesting, but it just ended up being much more complex than I was anticipating for a ghost story, and I really enjoyed it. I'm just a little kind of, I think, muddled in my understanding, so but this book follows this group of friends who haven't seen each other much in a few years, but they all come back together for a wedding. 2 of the friends are getting married, and it ends up, they decide to get married in this old haunted mansion in Japan. And so they get to the mansion for the wedding, and it's kind of about the unfolding of all of the dynamics of the characters, all the different relationships, and whether they get along or not. And it's also about the ghost story, but those things are like completely intertwined. It was really interesting, but it was just extremely complex, and I do feel like a lot of the subtleties of it kind of went over my head, so I definitely will be returning to this book at some point. But I think if you really like ghost stories or anything really creepy with like creepy houses and kind of surreal horror and definitely some gross horror, I think this is a really good one, and I think it's worth picking up. I'm just like, I don't know exactly how to explain how I feel about this book. I think I'm just gonna need to sit with it for a while longer. So I didn't end up reading anything beyond Nothing But Black and Teeth. That was my last read for October. I do have several other things kind of in progress that will probably get finished in November, so those will be my November wrap up, but I'm feeling really good about all the reading I did in October. I ended up reading a total of 7 books and short stories, and I think that totaled around 1,100 pages last time I looked at my spreadsheet, so I'm really happy with that. That was good. And I am feeling motivated to read more in November. Like I said, I have a few things ongoing that I suspect I'll finish in November. So, if you haven't already seen my November reading plans, I am trying to start a buying ban, but I'm kind of gamifying it. So for every 10 marbles I put in this jar, which is currently right there, I get to buy a book or pre-order a book. I can do either. But I have to have 10 marbles to do that. So at the end of every month, I'm going to be totaling up the things I read and then counting how many of those things I read were books that I actually owned that weren't like from the library or from Kindle Unlimited. And for October, that number is 4. So I get to put 4 marbles in my jar. There will probably be a little inset video here somewhere of me doing that. But I feel like that's a great start for this kind of effort at reducing my buying. And yeah. That's all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed making it. I really like this vlog style for my wrap-ups. I think it's a lot easier than trying to sit down and do a thing at the end of the month. I like having kind of fresher thoughts that I can offer you when I do this. So definitely definitely let me know what you think of this format down in the comments. And if you like this video, I hope you'll consider giving it a like and maybe even subscribing. I'm currently uploading every Saturday, so there will be new content coming soon. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.